If you are part of the competitive Smash scene like I am, then you are limited to only playing a handful of stages that we deem competitively permissible. That means we miss out on a lot of the little details and nods to the series that those stages are based on. Smash has always been chock full of these details since the beginning. So today, I want to focus on one set of stages in particular, the flat zones. Even casually, these stages aren't picked very often, most likely due to their less than favorable ratios of walk-offs, overwhelming hazards, and small overall sizes. But they contain ridiculous attention to detail to the Game & Watch series that, unless you're a huge Game & Watch nerd like me, might not even notice. Let's get started. The first time we see a flat zone stage is in Melee. This stage's overall appearance, based on the layout of the buttons, the color of the faceplate, and the position of the title of the game, in this case Smash Bros is used, is based on a Gold Series Game & Watch. In this case, the Gold Series in question here seems to be Helmet. This would make sense, as the stage borrows a lot of elements from Helmet. This is a reoccurring trend of flat zone stages, where their appearances most resemble what game they take the most elements from. In this case, we have the obvious things like the falling tools, as well as the overlay elements like the house and the tool shed. But less overt clues are the color of the accent and backplate color, as well as the 2-button layout. There are elements taken from other Game & Watches as well. This weird monkey guy moving platforms around is actually the protagonist from Manhole, specifically the Gold Series version, where you move, well, a manhole around so people don't fall into the sewer. Lastly, every once in a while, an old dude holding a 55-gallon drum will waddle out of the house, fall, and spill oil onto the ground. This guy is actually your partner from Oil Panic, and is where you dump your bucket of oil once you've caught up to 3 drops. A couple of minor details include the fact that sometimes your character will be in front of the scenery, and other times you'll appear behind it. We will get into why this is a big deal later in the video. Moving on to Brawl, we are introduced to Flat Zone 2, which cranks up the references and details to 11. Unlike Melee Flat Zone, whose appearance was based on a Gold Series Game & Watch, Flat Zone 2 is based on an early widescreen. This actually makes a lot of sense, since Brawl marked the shift from 4:3 to 16:9 widescreen ratio. This prevents the stage boundaries from otherwise being unintuitive. Think Duck Hunt in Smash 4, but instead of using the 4:3 ratio to make off-stage elements, you just died when you crossed it. Based on the button layout, backplate, and accent color, the particular Game & Watch in question is based on Fire, specifically the widescreen variant. Though the alarm and reset buttons are more akin to a Gold Series, set deep behind the faceplate and not flush like actual widescreens. This matches with the fact that you always start on the version of the stage with Fire's background elements, with the ambulance and the apartment, though the guy from Manhole is still there switching platforms around. Like a lot of Brawl stages, Flat Zone 2 shifts and changes. This means tons of references and details that weren't present in Flat Zone 1. So you may start on a special version of Fire every time you enter the stage, but you can also transition to a more complete version of Fire, with the Manhole guy gone, replaced by the fireman crew holding their trusty trampoline that you too can bounce on, as well as the terrified apartment tenants making the leap of faith. Another section is this one, based on the Gold Series game Lion. Unlike the game, there are no actual lions to corral, presumably replaced with the fighters here. The zookeepers or animal trappers, whatever they are, still do damage to you and can knock you back and forth. Keep playing and you'll reach a representation of the widescreen Game & Watch Chef. This one is very simple, with the titular chef trying his best to juggle the meat in his pan, which can hurt you if you're not careful. The last, and in my opinion, most interesting section is the one from Oil Panic, specifically the bottom screen of it, since Oil Panic was a multi-screen Game & Watch, like a DS. There isn't any actual oil to panic over in this version, but if you hit these gas station patrons, they will get real pissed and hit you back. This is similar to what happens when you accidentally, or intentionally, spill oil on them in the Oil Panic Game & Watch, with the crude animations being mirrored here. A couple of important things to note before we head into Smash 4 is that a lot of elements from the Game & Watches that these screens are based on have been removed, most likely to make it less busy on screen. For instance, the clock that all Game & Watches have isn't present, which is a shame since stages like Smashville have shown that you can make a stage that uses the Wii's built-in clock for some extra detail. Other elements like the life miss count and many other game over animations are missing. Like I said before, the lions aren't actually in the lion section, the chef is missing its mischievous cat and mouse, and the oil panic section is missing the guy wandering back and forth with his oil drum. Coincidentally, the same guy we saw eat shit in Flat Zone 1. But one thing that is present and accurate are the alarms, sort of. Every Game & Watch released from the Gold series on had alarms, just like other digital watches. These alarms would be represented by some character or other element on the screen ringing or shouting or something. Whenever the screen transitions from one scene to another, the appropriate alarm element for that game will show up, and start beeping in a manner very similar to how it actually sounded. Now, not every Game & Watch alarm sounded the same, but from what I can tell, the ones used in game are accurate enough to their real-life counterparts. One small detail missing for this though, is that when your alarm function is turned on for a real Game & Watch, a small part of the alarm element, for example the bell that a character will ring, will be present already, letting you know the alarm is switched on. Flat Zone 2 omits this detail, most likely to keep the play area less cluttered. Moving on to Smash 4, we are introduced to Flat Zone X. This stage shares a lot of similarities with Flat Zone 2, but also has a scene similar to Melee's Flat Zone. It will start on fire with the manhole platforms just the same, but everything is in higher def, which allows it to show off some more minor details only a Game & Watch nerd like me would notice. For instance, the faceplate of the stage now shows off a metallic finish, very common for Game & Watches, especially the Gold series and widescreens. Also, if you look closely at the screen, you'll see a bunch of small squares or dots. This is similar to the scenery overlays on Game & Watch screens. As you can see, they are also patterned with small squares or dots. Speaking of the overlays, most of the time they will be put in front of the LCD glass screen on real-life Game & Watches, while other later Game & Watches had a sort of sandwich of overlays, with one behind the glass and one in front. You'll notice sometimes your character or other elements on screen will be behind or in front of the scenery elements. This is actually spot on with real-life Game & Watches. For instance, in the lion scene, your character appears behind the trees. This is because the lion's overlay goes in front of the LCD glass screen. It's crazy that they would put so much detail into the stage like that. As for the Omega version of the stage, there really isn't much to talk about. Like other Omegas, it's just a flat, featureless version of the stage it's based on. In this case, it's based on the roof of the gas station from the oil panic. Cool idea, but not much to talk about otherwise. And with that, we're done. Thank you everyone for indulging my little Game & Watch nerd out session. I think it's important to realize just how much work and detail goes into these stages, even if we don't necessarily deem them worthy of playing on in a competitive sense. What's your favorite non-legal stage to play on, and why? Leave it in a comment below. I've got more videos coming up for you guys, so thanks for watching and I'll see you later.